That irresistible itch to wander, I've definitely felt it. And I bet you have too, right? That sudden urge to just, pack your bags and go somewhere new, discover those unseen corners of the world. It feels like more than just wanting a holiday, doesn't it? It's deeper. A real pull.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into wanderlust. What does it actually mean? Why do we feel it? And how does it shape, well, how we decide to travel? Because as we're going to explore, it seems like it's way more than just a simple desire. It looks like it's tied into our evolution, our psychology, maybe even our brain chemistry.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we've gathered insights from, well, quite a range of sources. We're looking at neuroscience studies, brain activity during decision making. There's a fascinating paper in Life on something called active inference. But we're also looking at things like current travel blog trends, academic reviews, digging into travel motivation over time, and even discussions from places like Reddit, seeing what people are actually saying. Okay, great. So our mission here is to try and uncover some of those psychological, maybe even biological reasons behind why we want to travel, hopefully helping you understand your own wanderlust a bit better and maybe even travel more effectively. Let's get started. So let's begin with the word itself, wanderlust. It's got a nice ring to it, hasn't it? It comes from German, a mix of wandern, which means to hike or roam, and lust, meaning desire. So literally it's something like enjoyment of hiking or enjoyment of wandering about.
That's right. It has roots in German Romanticism, quite poetic actually. But today, it generally means that strong desire to wander or travel and explore the world. Interestingly though, in modern German, they might more often use Fernweh.
Fernweh.
Yeah, it means a longing for faraway places.
Right.
It was actually coined as the opposite of Heimweh, which is homesickness.
Yeah.
So it kind of captures that specific ache for distance, maybe even more than just wandering.
Interesting distinction. So, okay, let's unpack this. What's really driving this deep desire to hit the road? Is it just like wanting a break or something more fundamental?
Well, there's definitely a case to be made for it being fundamental. Several key psychological theories give us some clues. First, there's the biophilia hypothesis from Edward O. Wilson. This basically suggests that we humans have this inherent, maybe even genetic urge to connect with nature.
Ah, okay. Like why just being in a forest can feel so good.
Exactly. It fuels that drive to explore natural environments, wild places.
Yeah.
Then you've got the self-determination theory. This comes from Richard Ryan and Edward Dacey. They argue we have three basic psychological needs. First, autonomy, that feeling of independence, being in control, which travel obviously gives you. Second, competence, the chance to learn new skills, adapt, figure things out. And third, relatedness, connecting with other people, forming relationships. Travel often hits all three of those.
Okay, autonomy, competence, relatedness, that makes sense.
One more, the curiosity interest model. This one suggests that our travel urge really starts with simple, intrinsic curiosity. That desire to discover, to understand, to see what's unknown, what's around that corner.
Yeah, I definitely feel that curiosity part. And sometimes it almost feels like wanderlust is, I don't know, a response to routine, maybe even a kind of rebellion against the everyday constraints. Like it's a way to seek escape, express your individuality. Travel lets you break free, shake things up, live on your own terms for a bit.
And that feeling, it's not just in your head, so to speak. It's actually chemical. There's a real neurochemical side to that travel euphoria. You know that buzz you get when you're planning a trip or when you first step off the plane somewhere new?
Oh, yeah.
That's partly dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to reward and pleasure. Your brain is basically saying, yes, this is good.
Travel can also boost serotonin levels, which is tied to feelings of well-being, happiness. And then there's oxytocin, often called the love hormone or bonding hormone. It can contribute to feeling more connected, maybe to the new people you meet, or even just the place itself.
Wow, so it's like a cocktail of feel-good chemicals. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, working together, making us happier, more connected. And that just fuels the desire to do it again. Precisely. It creates this positive feedback loop, keeps us dreaming of the next journey.
Okay, so we understand a bit more about the why behind wanderlust. Now let's look at travel itself today. The scene is definitely changing, isn't it? I saw some Google Trends data suggesting travel-related searches are up, like 50% in the past year alone. That seems huge. It's not just more interest, but maybe different kinds of interest.
Absolutely. The landscape is evolving, and we've sort of identified 5 big trending categories, each tapping into those psychological drivers we talked about in different ways. First up, there's sustainable travel. This isn't just niche anymore. It's a major trend. People are actively looking for eco-friendly options, trying to reduce their impact. The key thing here is it's moving beyond just do no harm, towards maybe even making a positive impact. Regenerative travel.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
Well, it's about choices. Looking for eco-friendly places to stay, maybe LEED certified, or using great water systems, packing reusable things, water bottles, utensils, cloth bags, using natural toiletries. Thinking about transport, choosing trains over short flights where possible. That Eurostar example is classic. London to Paris by train is something like 90% less carbon per passenger than flying.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah. And volunteering is big too, combining travel with purpose, like habitat restoration, maybe reforestation in Costa Rica, or helping at an elephant sanctuary like the one in Chiang Mai, Thailand. This really connects back to that biophilia idea, connecting with and protecting nature.
Right. Okay, what's next? Number 2 is adventure travel. And this market is just exploding. Projections are saying it could reach something like $1.6 trillion by 2026. That's staggering. It seems like it's not just about seeing new places, but really pushing your own boundaries, mastering challenges, which is leading to loads of innovation in gear and tech too.
Exactly. Think extreme sports, skydiving in the Alps, whitewater rafting in New Zealand. Places where you really need specialized gear. And you have to understand the conditions, the risks, the safety protocols, or challenging treks, like that snowman trek in Bhutan, 25 days, crossing passes over 16,000 feet. That demands serious knowledge about acclimatization, navigation, leave-no-trace principles.
Definitely taps into that need for competence we talked about.
Yeah.
And autonomy too, making your own way.
Underwater exploration fits here too, escapade diving, understanding marine life, even wilderness survival skills. It's all about testing yourself against the elements.
Okay, so sustainable adventure. What's the third trend?
Cultural immersion. And this is huge too. Cultural tourism apparently makes up about 40% of all international tourism now. It reflects this growing desire for, well, authentic connection, really getting under the skin of a place, which clearly satisfies that need for relatedness.
So beyond just visiting museums.
Oh yeah. Think authentic homestays, actually living with local families, participating in daily life, planning trips around traditional festivals like Diwali in India or Jian Matsuri in Japan, to really experience the culture firsthand. Culinary travel is massive too. Street food tours, cooking classes. Food is such a direct way into a culture. Learning the language while you're there, total immersion speeds that up incredibly. Witnessing ancient rituals that are still practiced today. It's about finding that deep connection to heritage.
Makes sense. Okay, fourth trend. This one's maybe more practical. Budget travel. The market here is also massive, estimated around $800 billion globally. So clearly, a lot of people are finding smart ways to travel without breaking the bank. The insight seems to be that you don't need a fortune to satisfy that curiosity and wanderlust.
Exactly. It's about strategy. Using cost of living information to pick destinations Southeast Asia is a classic example where you can live really affordably using budgeting apps. Things like house sitting have become popular free accommodation in exchange for looking after someone's home and pets. Lets you live like a local.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Choosing hidden gems over tourist hotspots. That not only saves money, but helps combat over-tourism and support smaller communities. Maximizing travel rewards points. Even finding budget-friendly ways to get a taste of luxury, like using off-peak deals or buying day passes for resort pools.
So it empowers people, gives them autonomy to travel more, even on a budget.
Right. And the fifth trend is the digital nomad lifestyle. This has just exploded, especially recently. Location-independent work. The estimated number of digital nomads globally could reach 1 billion by 2035. That's just mind-boggling. It's fundamentally changing how people think about work, life, and travel.
1 billion, wow. Talk about autonomy, designing your whole life.
Totally. It involves finding good co-working spaces for community and reliable internet, developing serious discipline to actually balance work with exploring, having the right tech-reliable laptops, VPNs for security, navigating visas, which can be complex, and finding ways to build community when you're constantly moving using specific social platforms, joining meetups. It's a whole lifestyle built around maximizing freedom and experience, definitely hitting autonomy and competence.
Okay, those are 5 really distinct trends. Sustainable, adventure, cultural, budget, and digital nomad. It shows how diverse travel motivations really are. Now let's switch gears a bit. Back to the brain. This is where it gets really interesting for me. How does our brain actually decide? You know, when faced with the choice between sticking with something safe and known versus trying something new and uncertain, that's basically the travel decision, right?
That's a great question, and it leads us to this framework called active inference. You can kind of think of it as your brain having an internal surprise meter. It's constantly trying to minimize surprise or uncertainty about the world, always trying to predict what's going to happen next. It's seen as this sort of unified theory for perception, decision-making, even learning.
Okay, minimizing surprise. How does that relate to choosing, say, a familiar destination versus a totally new one?
That gets into what's called the exploration-exploitation trade-off. It's this constant tension the brain manages. Exploration is about doing things that give you more information about your environment. Usually these are actions with higher uncertainty, like trying that completely unknown restaurant in a new city.
Right. Could be amazing, could be terrible.
Exactly, whereas exploitation is about choosing actions that maximize the reward you expect based on what you already know. Like going back to that restaurant you know and love, you know you'll get a good meal.
Okay. Explore for info, exploit for known rewards.
Yeah. And active inference provides a really neat mathematical way to think about how the brain balances these two. It's not just about the potential reward, but also about the value of reducing uncertainty itself.
So learning something new is intrinsically valuable to the brain.
That's the idea. And the framework distinguishes between two main types of uncertainty we try to reduce. There's novelty. This is uncertainty about the rules of the game, basically.
Yeah.
How does the situation work? You reduce novelty by sampling, by trying things out, gathering data.
Like figuring out the subway system in a new city.
Perfect example. Then there's variability. This is uncertainty about the current state of the game, even if you know the rules. Is the market open today? Is the good chef cooking tonight? The brain assigns a value to reducing both types of uncertainty. This is called epistemic value, the value of knowledge. And that gets weighed alongside the extrinsic value, the actual reward you might get to guide your decision.
Okay, this sounds complex, but you mentioned an experiment, the apples in a forest. Maybe that makes it clearer.
Yeah, it's a clever setup. Imagine you're in a forest trying to collect apples. You start with 5. On each turn, you choose between 2 paths. The safe path always gives you 6 apples. Predictable.
Okay.
The risky path gives you a random number of apples between 0 and 12. But here's the trick. The average payoff of the risky path changes. Sometimes it's generally high reward, context 1. Sometimes it's generally low reward, context 2. And you don't always know which context you're in.
Ah, so there's variability.
Exactly. And crucially, you could choose to pay 1 apple to ask a ranger for a cue, basically. Information about whether the risky path is currently in the high reward or low reward context.
So you can pay for information to reduce that variability uncertainty, just like buying a guidebook or hiring a local guide. What happened?
Well, the results were fascinating. First, the active inference model, the one that includes the value of reducing uncertainty, did a much better job of explaining people's actual choices compared to simpler models that only focus on maximizing reward. It captured their tendency to explore. And second, people did pay for the cue. They significantly favored asking the ranger, especially when they didn't know the current context. They were willing to sacrifice a guaranteed apple just to know more about the risky path.
So they valued information, the epistemic value, even when it cost them something.
Precisely. It shows that seeking information, reducing uncertainty, isn't just a means to an end. It seems to be intrinsically rewarding for the brain. Exploration is fundamental. And using EEG, they could even see which brain areas were involved. Parts of the prefrontal cortex, like the frontal pole and rostral middle frontal gyrus, seem crucial for weighing up that expected reward versus the value of information. They lit up particularly during risky or ambiguous choices. Other areas, like the medial orbitofrontal cortex, were linked specifically to valuing the reduction of uncertainty about the state, that variability. And the precentral gyrus seemed important for learning the rules, reducing novelty.
Wow. So putting it all together, our brains aren't just passively reacting. They're actively trying to predict the world. And they place real value on information that helps them do that better. It's like we're hardwired to explore, to resolve uncertainty, even if it means taking risks or paying a price. That really reframes Wanderlust, doesn't it? Not just a desire, but maybe a biological imperative to figure things out. Okay, so beyond the deep brain science, there are also, social and personal things that shape our travel choices. Let's touch on the fear of missing out, FOMO. We hear that term a lot. How does it play into travel?
It's definitely a factor for some people. We saw discussions on Reddit where individuals talked about its downsides, quite frankly. They mentioned how FOMO can devalue the present, making it hard to enjoy where you actually are because you're worried about what else you could be doing.
Yeah, I can see that.
It can also lead to impulsive decisions, maybe spending money you don't have on trips, or even damaging long-term goals like careers, because of this constant need for the next exciting short-term thing. Some people mention it made maintaining deep friendships difficult, always chasing the next exciting person instead of investing in current relationships, leading to feeling, paradoxically, surrounded by people and still feel alone. The consensus seemed to be that, feeling it occasionally is normal, but it's a problem if it consistently drives your decisions and impacts your well-being.
Right. It's that idea that comparison is the thief of joy. Maybe that's why we're also hearing about JOMO, the joy of missing out, finding happiness in staying put sometimes. Now, here's something that really jumped out at me from the research, specifically an article citing Psychology Today. It claimed that married men travel more and are less xenophobic than single men, and also more than women of any marital status. That sounds surprising, and maybe a bit controversial.
It is a striking claim, and it comes from work by Satoshi Kanazawa, an evolutionary psychologist. He proposes a specific theory to explain it, rooted in evolutionary psychology. His argument is basically that traditionally, a man's value as a potential mate, things like wealth, status, is often very tied to his specific culture. It's not portable.
Okay, like a fancy car or a big house doesn't impress everyone everywhere.
Exactly. He uses examples like BMWs and second homes aren't portable, and women in remote cultures might not care about a Grammy Award. In contrast, he argues, traits often valued in women, like youth and beauty, are perceived more universally across cultures.
Okay, so where does marriage fit in?
Well, Kanazawa's theory suggests that marriage, somewhat ironically, frees men from the constant need to display their culture-bound status to attract mates locally. And he goes further to suggest that, in this view, a wife may be the lone sexual status symbol that is understood across cultures, signifying the man's mating success universally.
Okay. That's certainly one interpretation from an evolutionary psychology perspective. It's important to state that, right? It's a theory. There could be many other social, economic, or personal reasons why travel patterns differ based on marital status.
Absolutely. It's crucial to frame it as one specific hypothesis within that field. It doesn't account for all the complex factors influencing travel, like shared finances, spousal encouragement, life stage, or simply individual personality differences that might correlate with both marriage and travel desire. But it's certainly a provocative idea discussed in the source material.
Definitely provocative. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. It seems Wanderlust is much more complex than just wanting a vacation. It's tied into our deep psychology needs for autonomy, competence, relatedness, our connection to nature, our basic curiosity, and even our brain chemistry with dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin playing roles.
Right. And we see this manifesting in really diverse ways today through trends like sustainable travel, adventure seeking, deep cultural immersion, budget strategies, and the whole digital nomad movement. Each taps into those core motivations differently.
And then there's the brain's decision-making process, that fascinating active inference framework. Our brains aren't just seeking rewards, they're actively trying to reduce uncertainty, valuing information itself. That exploration-exploitation balance is key.
And finally, we touched on how social factors like FOMO and even personal circumstances like marital status can add another layer of complexity to why and how we travel, according to some theories and observations.
So understanding all these forces, the psychological, the neurological, the social, hopefully gives you a richer perspective on your own desire to travel. It can help you make choices that really align with what you're seeking, whether that's personal growth, connection, learning, or just pure adrenaline.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over. If our brains are indeed wired this way, actively seeking information and resolving uncertainty through exploration, how might we use that understanding? How could we intentionally design our future travels, not just to see new places, but maybe, just maybe, to consciously foster our own personal growth and resilience by strategically engaging that very mechanism?